KWT slaying.
What if the truth was never lost, only buried? For centuries, historians, scholars, and even colonial records have confirmed what many tried to silence. The original Israelites were a black people scattered across continents but never erased. Their skin was dark, their customs ancient, and their covenant with Yah eternal. This journey uncovers how the Spanish and Portuguese Jews, described as dark-skinned, Semitic, shared one bloodline. Chased by the Inquisition, many fled to Portugal, then beyond, preserving their heritage across borders. But the story doesn't end in Iberia. Across from West Africa, black Jews built synagogues, kept Torah, and passed down the laws of Moses. The Limba in southern Africa, the Igbo in Nigeria, the Beta Israel in Ethiopia, tribes across the continent boldly declared, "We are the children of Israel." These aren't isolated claims. These are voices rising from the dust, connected by oral histories, Torah traditions, and the unbroken rhythm of their identity. No such legacy exists among European Jews. No centuries of tribal witness, no matching traditions, no trace of ancient covenant keeping. Maps, art, and archaeology tell the same story. The Israelites were scattered, enslaved, and displaced, but never lost. The world always knew who they were. Their presence was visible, their customs alive, their story intact. This book doesn't speculate. It confirms the Israelites were black, bound by blood, culture, and covenant to the Most High. This is not just history, it's restoration. The truth was never destroyed, only buried beneath centuries of deception. Get your copy of They Always Knew We Were Israelites today, available now on Amazon.com.
Salama family, salama, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. So family, if you got my book, True Jerusalem, Lost Kingdoms of the Israelites, this is pretty much going to be adding to that research, right? And the reason why I want to do this, and I got a lot of stuff I got to get out, is because the AIC, we meet together, we had discussions. Shout out to Brother Sean and Yah Israel. That's two members of the AIC, African Israelite Collective, and we be having these discussions. So I'm going to talk about Mesopotamia, right? The real Mesopotamia from my viewpoint. And also, I think it's important so that you can really have a perspective on what is Israel, right? Now, if you got my book, you already know, but this adds more value to it, I think. And I think it gives more clarity. And, like I said, these people, you can't trust them, right? They didn't lie about everything. And I know some people are going to say, well, how come you trust in their books? Well, that's all we got. And everybody wasn't part of the erasure, if you know what I'm saying. Every author, every publisher back in the day, especially pre-1900s, was not a part of the erasure of our identity and heritage and history. Now, we sort of have a repeat happening today, right? We have the erasure of our history in America, right? We have the removal of DEI. We have the removal of what they call critical race theory. Any, positive contribution of Negroes, Africans, Blacks, Israelites, Ezra Alawi, whatever you want to call us, FBAs, any kind of positive, history they're trying to remove. So what was is what will be. Nothing new under the sun, right? So I don't expect this to be a long show, but I think it's a valuable show. And so we're going to get into it. All right. Hopefully y'all can see that pretty good. How many of you all heard of Prester John? If you heard of Prester John, give me a 1. If you haven't, give me a 2. But we're going to talk about Prester John. And he's sort of a hidden figure, right? Historically, they tried to hide Prester John, and they made certain claims about him and not really identifying who he was. Try to put him in this realm of mythology. So we're going to talk about this. And what does that have to do with Mesopotamia? You're going to see, because it all comes together, right? And I'm going to tell you about, someone, shout out to the person who sent me the reference to the book called The Book of Knowledge. Very insightful, right? And so this particular teaching, I'm going to post it afterwards, maybe an hour or two later at tailministries.com if you want to go pull it down. All right. So let's get started. All right. So title, Prester John, the Israelite king who ruled biblical Mesopotamia in Africa. For centuries, the figure of Prester John has been shrouded in mystery. That's because they wanted it to be. Relegated by European historians to legend or myth. However, a careful examination of historical maps, early missionary reports, and medieval travel accounts reveals a far more grounded truth. Prester John was likely a real Black Israelite ruler whose vast kingdom stretched from West Africa around Niger, Benin, and Mali to Ethiopia and Nubia in East Africa. This article provides the evidence that connects him directly to King David and Solomon, placing his rule in the true biblical Mesopotamia, centered in sub-Saharan Africa. All right. Prester John's Hebrew identity. There is mounting evidence from historical accounts, cartography, and missionary reports that Prester John was not merely a Christian monarch, which is what they tried to tell us, that he was a Christian monarch, right, over in Africa. Nah, that's not what he was, even though he probably became one. He was an Israelite. But a ruler of Israelite origin, likely descended from King Solomon and the tribe of Judah. Several clues support this. So here's some references. If you read my book, you'll remember some of these references, and some references aren't in my book. So, all right, Sidney Mendelssohn in The Jews of Africa, quote, John Pori, who wrote, a populous nation of the Jewish stock inhabited the region west of the Nile under a mighty king. Now, this mighty king was Prester John. Okay, they don't really tell you that. They like to dance around the evidence. But once you read all the different historical accounts, you understand that it was Prester John. All right, now we're going to talk about what Prester John means. Richard Blome and other early European geographers described the land of Prester John as inhabited by Black people who practice Hebrew customs with references to circumcision, Sabbath observance, and the burning of the cross on the forehead in baptism, a hybrid of ancient Israelite and Christian symbolism. Now, this is important. I'm not going to really talk about this maybe in the future. This burning of the cross through Christendom, they still do that. Some groups over there in Ethiopia today, Do you know that they not only burn this cross on their forehead, but they also burn a cross on their right hand? I'm just saying, y'all know mark of the beast, right hand, forehead. So, Christianity obviously has been taken over by the enemy. And so I wouldn't be surprised that with the right-wing Christians, right, that there will be a conservative increase of right-wing Zionist Christianity, which might bring to forward these marks on the right hand and forehead, but in a digital manner. Who knows, right? It's possible, because even today, the Catholic Church on Ash Wednesday put a cross on your head, right? On your wrist. I never knew that came from Africa. That came over from Ethiopia. So we'll talk about that maybe in the future, about that Christian symbolism, right? I mean, the Antichrist is called an anti-opposite of Christ for a reason, in place of, I'm just saying, look who running things today, so-called Christians, right? Okay, all right. But the 1580 Harvard map referencing Prester John identifies him as David, born of the tribe of Judah, son of David, son of Solomon, ruler of Nubia and territories along the Niger River. Okay, let me repeat that, because I did a show in the past about this, right? About the king of Africa. This was Prester John. And in that map, it says David, born of the tribe of Judah, son of David, son of Solomon, ruler of Nubia and territories along the Niger River. Okay, so where did Prester John rule? And who was Prester John? Well, he was born of the tribe of Judah, son of David, son of Solomon. And what territory did he rule? From Nubia and territories along the Niger River. So that's over in West Africa. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to make the case that a certain area in West Africa is what we would call Mesopotamia. Additionally, the map clearly names a ruler, David, son of Solomon of the tribe of Judah, directly tying Prester John to what? Israelite royal descent. That's if you give any credit to these documents that we get from Europeans. It's not coming from Negroes, mind you. These records align with Ethiopian claims found in the Kaaba Nagast, which assert that Solomon fathered a royal bloodline through the Queen of Sheba. While the figure Menelik I is central to Ethiopian tradition, because we're talking about tradition, it is important to note that he is not mentioned in the Bible or any apocryphal scripture. So I don't believe the Menelik story personally. But that doesn't mean that that's not Israelite territory and Israelite people in the area, right? Thus, Menelik I should only be viewed as part of Ethiopian oral tradition rather than a verified historical link. The documented references to a ruler named David, son of Solomon, found in European maps and writings, offer stronger external support for identifying Prester John with the Israelite lineage. Together, these traditions strongly support that Prester John, known in Hebrew as Melech Yohan, was a black Jew ruling over Israelites scattered across Africa. All right, so Prester John, known as Melech. Melech means king. Yohan, like Yehochanan, right? Means John. Prester John, King John. All right. So this is the map where all of that come from, talking about who Prester John is, and that he descends from the line of David, that he is the son of Solomon, and he ruled from Nubia all the way over to East Africa. All right, this is the map. All right, so the name Prester John is a European corruption of the term presbyter Yohan. Some of y'all say Yehochanan, right? Meaning Priest John. So presbyter means priest. This is in the Latin. Presbyter means priest. Priest Yohanan or Yehochanan, priest John in Latin-based languages. So they call him John or Melech John, which is king, right? This reflects the European assumption that the ruler was what? A priest king, combining spiritual and political authority. Some scholars have noted that this title could also reflect how the ruler was viewed by foreign observers, perhaps due to the integration of both Israelite customs and early Christian elements observed in his kingdom. In Hebrew, his more accurate title would have been Zakin Yahonan, or Elder John, or Melech Yahonan, or King John, or more accurately in Hebrew, Zakin Yahodan, Elder John, or Melech Yahonan, King John, a Latin map inscription cited in 16th century Harvard map. And once again, it reads, David, the supreme of my kingdoms, uniquely beloved of God, the pillar of faith, born of the tribe of Judah, son of David, son of Solomon, son of the pillar of Zion, son of the seed of Jacob. Emperor, now take note of this because this is highly important. Emperor of Upper and Greater Ethiopia. If y'all read my book, y'all know where this goes. Emperor of Upper and Greater Ethiopia, ruler of the vastest realms and territories, Nubia, which extends into Egypt, the Niger River. So Yehochanan, or Yehonan, however you want to pronounce it, ruled from West Africa to East Africa. Did I not tell you where the territory of Israelites is located? Did I not tell you, if you read my book, that sub-Saharan Africa is our territory? Importantly, the terms Upper and Lower Ethiopia in this context are geographical identifiers. Upper Ethiopia extended toward modern Ethiopia and the Congo region, while Lower Ethiopia came to be known as Negroland. There's more details about this in my book. Spanning parts of West Africa, including regions near the Niger River. This framework is supported by the Atlas Geographic, which divides Africa into Upper Ethiopia, including Abyssinia and regions near the Nile and Red Sea, and Lower Ethiopia, which includes Guinea, the Gold Coast, and inland regions west of the Nile, i.e. Negroland. Now, just to let you know that the ancient Guinea is different than modern Guinea, the country. Okay. Ancient Guinea included areas like Ghana, Nigeria, right? Senegal, all those areas, right? So just to let you know, don't try to think that Guinea is the modern Guinea, because it's not. This classification, combined with accounts in the Book of Knowledge of all the kingdoms and early European maps, suggest that Melech Yohanan, Prester John, ruled a kingdom stretching across the biblical promised land. Okay, so Prester John ruled from West Africa to East Africa, like I've told y'all in my book and in many of my videos. All right, so the new addition to my resources is the book called The Book of Knowledge of All the Kingdoms. This is very important because it gives us more insight. This map places his dominion not only in Ethiopia, but across vast territories that include West Africa, identifying him as a descendant of Solomon and David ruling the true house of Israel. The Encyclopedia of Missions and the Euphrates in West Africa. The Encyclopedia of Missions by Edwin Munsell Bliss reveals this striking statement. The section of the slave coast between Little Popo and Porto Novo, its chief city, Ouida, formerly called Judah, was said to be inhabited by Jews, while the river Alala was spoken of as the Euphrates. I talked about this 100 times, about the river Alala really being the river Euphrates, which is the Niger River. Okay, and I proved that before, and I'm going to prove it again. This West African region, now modern-day Benin, was clearly associated with Judah and the Euphrates River. This reinforces the theory that the biblical Euphrates is not in Mesopotamia or Iraq, but is rather the Niger River, or more specifically, one of its distributaries, the Alala or Gueme River. Additionally, National Geographic's publication, The World's Great Rivers, reprints a historical source that clearly identifies Emmanuel with the Niger system. And here's the quote. In this kingdom of Emmanuel, there enters a branch of the river Euphrates, Niger. The friar does not confuse this with the Mesopotamian Euphrates, but assumes two rivers with the same name, referring evidently to the river Benue, a tributary of the Niger. That's National Geographic. So this confirms that Emmanuel, a major city historically associated with the region near the Niger River system, lay near what early maps labeled the Kong Mountains. Although later exploration confirmed that the Kong Mountains were a phantom range, a fictitious set of mountains mistakenly placed on maps by European cartographers, the name remained important in early geographical descriptions. These phantom mountains help locate and understand the conceptual geography of the period, especially when identifying key regions like Emmanuel in relation to the Niger system. This further validates the West African location of biblical Edenic geography, in contrast to traditional claims placing Eden in Asia. The Book of Knowledge of All Kingdoms and the Four Rivers. Now, this I thought this was very important. The Book of Knowledge of All the Kingdoms and the Four Rivers. Further reinforcing his connection to the biblical rivers, the Book of Knowledge of All the Kingdoms also states, he is the patriarch, talking about Prester John. He is the patriarch of Nubia and Ethiopia, and at his coming, he always goes along the banks of the river Euphrates. This is a well-peopled and well-supplied land. From the time I came to Mousa, I saw and heard marvelous things every day. So he controlled the territory of Nubia and Ethiopia. Now, I got to tell you this before we continue, just so you don't get confused. When we're talking about Ethiopia, we're not talking about modern Ethiopia. We're talking about the upper and lower Ethiopia, which is sub-Saharan Africa for the most part. All right. If, as demonstrated earlier, the Euphrates referred to the Niger River because we saw in the National Geographic that that location is the Niger River, or Emmanuel, where the river Euphrates was specifically referred to as the Niger River, okay? It said that the Euphrates is the Niger River, okay? And in my book, I'll show a map that shows the same thing and all that stuff. So if you want more context, just get my book. If, as demonstrated earlier, the Euphrates refers to the Niger River, then this passage suggests that Prester John walked near or along the Niger River itself, confirming his presence in West Africa. Considering the reference to Mousa and nearby descriptions of marvels and paradise-like mountains, this likely situates his domain in modern-day Mali or the Niger region, possibly near ancient Timbuktu, a major cultural and trade center in the Sahel. Isn't it interesting that a lot of things are happening in the Sahel right now? This geographic clue strengthens the case that Prester John lived within the real Mesopotamia Edenic zone, and that his presence near the Euphrates further ties his dominion to the ancestral and covenantal lands of Scripture. So Prester John would walk along the Niger River. Why? Because he lived there. He lived there among the Niger River, which they refer to as Euphrates. And Prester John is associated with King David, a descendant of King Solomon, a priestly king. A pivotal quote from the Book of Knowledge of All Kingdoms, translated by C.R. Markham, states, In this kingdom of Emmanuel, there enters a branch of the river Euphrates, which rises in the lofty mountains of the Antarctic pole. It's not talking about the Antarctic like you're thinking. It's talking about the mountains there. This river forms three branches. Okay, so this river, right, which is where the Euphrates is, by Emmanuel, which we know is over there by the Niger River. This river forms three branches. The Abdesalib is defender of the church of Nubia and Ethiopia, and he defends Prester Juan or Prester John. There are Negroes who, both of them, right? They are Negroes, Abdesalib and Prester John. They are Negroes. They are what? They are Negroes who? Abdesalib is a Negro, and who else? Prester John or Prester Juan. They are Negroes as to their skins. Although these men are Negroes, they are men of intelligence with good brains. So, you know, this joker here trying to infer by that statement that Negroes are intelligent. I'm saying, you know, hey, you one of the good ninjas. You know what I'm saying? That's what I get from it. You one of the good ninjas. You one of the smart ninjas. But anyway, let's continue. Additionally, the book of knowledge describes Emmanuel as a very great and populous kingdom with a land supplying all that is good. But the people are heathens. What? The people are heathens and believe in idols. Lower Ethiopia, later known as Negro land, contained regions inhabited by idolaters, offering geographic and cultural consistency across sources. So some of y'all are going to say, well, I thought you said this was Israelite territory. I thought you said these were Jews, but it says that there were people by heathens and people who believe in idols. Well, if you read my book, you would understand that this is in reference to our ancestors who went and worshiped other gods, worshiped idols, and that's why we went into captivity, and that's why the slave trade happened mainly in the West Coast, because that's where the heathens were. That's where our ancestors were who turned away from the Most High and worshiped idols. All right, so, and most critically, from the water of those seas, now this is from the same book, okay? This is from the same book. The book of knowledge of all kingdoms. From the water of those seas come four rivers. This is from that book. From the waters of those seas come four rivers, which are the largest in the world. They call them Tigris, Euphrates, which we know to be the Niger, Gihon, which we proved in my book is the Nile River, and Pison, right, is the Bible. Our canon calls it Pison. These four rivers irrigate all of Nubia and Ethiopia, right? Now, remember, I told you Ethiopia is not modern day Ethiopia. It is upper and lower Ethiopia, which is sub-Saharan Africa. All right. So these rivers, the four rivers that you see in Genesis chapter 2, waters the whole area of Nubia and upper and lower Ethiopia. All right. So this places all four rivers of Eden, namely the Gihon, which is the Nile, Euphrates, which is the Niger River, Tigris, and Pishon in Africa. All right. So I told y'all if Gihon was in Africa, I told y'all that, right? I told y'all if Gihon is in Africa, then the Euphrates is in Africa, and the Tigris is in Africa, and Pishon is in Africa. Why? Because they split from the same source. That's just logic 101. But here in this book, it specifically says that this area, these four rivers, irrigate all of Nubia and Ethiopia. So does that not, yes or no, family, put the four rivers on the continent of Africa? Yes or no? I'm just saying. Logic. This is from that book. Now, it depends on how much credence you give it. The book was written in 1350. Okay. According to them, the four rivers that we see in Genesis irrigates all of Nubia and all of Ethiopia, which is, if we're looking at it from the viewpoint of sub-Saharan Africa, is upper and lower, which is Negro land, and then over there in upper, which is near Ethiopia, modern day Ethiopia or Abyssinia, and the Congo. The Tigris is the Tekezi River. Now, this is my opinion. Eat the meat, spit out the bone. The Tekezi River, which flows from the Ethiopian highlands and feeds into the Adbara, A Nile tributary is a strong candidate for the Tigris, or Hiddekel. It runs eastward from the highlands, matching the biblical direction. So Genesis 2:14 says, which goeth toward the east of Ashur in Hebrew. So some say Assyria right now. Once again, in my opinion, is not modern Assyria, not Iraq. That is a deception. All right. But the Tigris, or the Tekezi River, it runs eastward. Okay, according to the scripture, which goeth toward the east of Ashur. And that's the same with the Tekezi River in the Ethiopian highlands, which is in Tigray region, let me continue before I get too far. Importantly, the Tekezi River flows through the Tigray region of Ethiopia. The phonetic similarity between Tigray and Tigris should not be dismissed, especially given that biblical geography was preserved orally and through cultural memory in surrounding regions. While mainstream etymology attributes the name Tigris to ancient Mesopotamian languages, it is very plausible that European explorers, monks, or scribes applied or retained the name due to its geographical association with the Tigray region where the river runs. Now, doesn't it make sense? Okay, if the river is in Tigray, they will say the Tigray River or the Tigris River. Come on, now, yes or no? Does that not make sense? I'm just saying. Unlike the White Nile, so, my position is that the White Nile and the Blue Nile are not the two rivers, because I'm not going to move along too fast. I'm going to explain to you because I'm almost there. Unlike the White Nile and Blue Nile, which both flow northward and converge at Khartoum, the Tegezi flows east to northeast, fitting the trajectory of the Tigris for better, right? So the White Nile and the Blue Nile, they go north. They flow northward. Whereas we know that according to Genesis, the Tigray, or the Hiddekel, it flows towards the east, which is like the Tekezi, right? The Tekezi flows toward the east. The Blue Nile and the White Nile do not flow east, they flow north. So why the Nile confluence cannot be the biblical Mesopotamia? The term confluence refers to the point where two or more rivers meet and merge into a single stream. While the Blue and White Nile meet in Sudan, this confluence does not qualify as Mesopotamia, land between rivers. All right, let me stop right there so I can give you an update. Mesopotamia means land between two rivers. That's what Mesopotamia means. It means land between two rivers. Now, the fact that the Blue Nile and the White Nile are the same source and they flow north and not east, right, means that it could not fit the criteria for being part of Mesopotamia, because Mesopotamia means the land between two rivers. Okay? So while the Blue Nile and the White Nile meet in Sudan, this confluence does not qualify as Mesopotamia, land between rivers, because they are branches of one river. So the Blue Nile and the White Nile are branches of one river, not two distinct rivers flanking a landmass. The Nile flows in one direction, north, not forming a basin of civilization like the real Mesopotamia did. Okay, so the Blue Nile and the White Nile cannot be the two rivers that identifies Mesopotamia. In contrast, the Niger-Benue river system and the Nile, Gihon, and the Tekezi, Tigris, in between, surround a vast fertile region in Chad, Niger, Mali, Sudan, and Ethiopia, which forms a true land between rivers. All right. So between the rivers that were given to Abraham and his descendants, which is between the Euphrates and the Wadi of Egypt, the Wadi of Egypt being the Gihon, being the Nile River, then that puts the territory given to Abraham and his descendants, which is inclusive of the Israelites, from the Niger River, which I identified as the Euphrates, all the way over to the Nile, which I identified as the Gihon. This is the territory that Prester John ruled over. Okay. Who was a black priestly Israelite king. So the real Mesopotamia was in Africa. The name Mesopotamia means between the rivers. The only region that matches this meaning with the correct 4 rivers is Central and Eastern Africa specifically. All right. So we know that according to the Book of Knowledge, right, that the 4 rivers came out of this area and watered Nubia and Ethiopia. And remember, Ethiopia is inclusive of Upper and Lower Ethiopia, which is, which is Upper and Lower Ethiopia is the Ethiopia that they're talking about that Prester John ruled over. All right, so let's look at something right quick. All right. I'm going to share this with you right quick. We're going to look at a few. So this is the Niger Delta that I'm going to be sharing. Okay. So this is the Niger River. This is the real Euphrates River. That is the real Euphrates River, fam. Now what we're going to do, Tekezi. This is the Tekezi in Ethiopia. So this would be the Tigris, the Tekezi River. This would be the Tigris. All right, so move on to the next river. And this is the Nile River. So this would be the Gihon. This is the Nile River, which would be the Gihon. And most scholars agree with that the Gihon is the Nile. This is the Nile River. That would be the Gihons. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one. No music on this one. This is the Chad Basin, and we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Lake Chad is located in
the importance of the Chad Basin,
a semi-arid region stretching across the southern edge of the Sahara Desert. The people of the Sahel are among the poorest in the world. Predominantly rural, they rely on natural resources for their livelihoods. Yet the region's climate is highly variable and prone to extreme weather events like droughts and floods.
So we're going to talk about why the Chad Basin is probably the area of the Pishon.
Along with the rise of armed conflicts with rebel and extremist groups in recent
looks sort of dry, right? But there's rivers around these areas.
And around Lake Chad in the 4 states it borders. Cameroon,
so that's Lake Chad,
Niger, and
Nigeria.
The Lake
Cameroon.
Chad Basin also includes the Central
This is the
African
Chad
Republic
Basin
and Libya. The 2 million people who now call the lake home have made it an oasis of relative prosperity in the Sahel, in spite of intense environmental, social, and political challenges. The
so
surface
we're
area
going to see
of Lake
why.
Chad
You see that? You see all this water and these rivers and everything?
Variation, both
all right,
seasonally
this is the Chad
and
Basin,
over the long term. Over the past century,
which I believe is associated with the Pishon. I'm going to tell you why.
Reduced and increased again.
Let's end it right there, and we'll continue. All right. All right. So the name Mesopotamia means between the rivers. The only region that matches this meaning with the correct 4 rivers is Central and Eastern Africa. All right. So I showed you the Niger, the Tekezi, the Nile, which is the Gihon, and the Chad Basin. So here's the Chad Basin. Here's the Chad Lake, right? All right. So according to the Book of Knowledge, right? The Book of Knowledge, this is where the rivers will be. So this is the Nile River right here. This is the Nile. Tigris is right up in here, right? The Tekezi right up in here. Well, really right up in here, right in the area of Tigray in Ethiopia. That's the Tigris. Euphrates is the Niger River over here, the Niger River, right? The Gihon is the Nile. Pishon is the Chad Basin. Okay, now why is the Chad Basin important? We'll see. All right, so this configuration is not just a geographic match. It is backed by early texts. According to the Book of Knowledge of All Kingdom, a 14th century source, from the water of those seas come 4 rivers, which are the largest in the world. They call them the Tigris, Euphrates, Gihon, and Pishon. They call it fiction. Fiction. These 4 rivers irrigate what? All Nubia and Ethiopia. Now, that's according to the Book of Knowledge of All Kingdoms, right? It waters all of Nubia and Ethiopia. Remember, Ethiopia is upper and lower. This quote affirms that the region of Nubia and Ethiopia was understood in medieval geography to be the location of all 4 rivers mentioned in Genesis 2. So according to this book, all 4 rivers was what? In Nubia and Ethiopia, which we call sub-Saharan Africa today. However, it is important to clarify that the term Ethiopia in this context refers not only to modern day Ethiopia, but also to upper and lower Ethiopia, which together covered a much broader region extending from modern Ethiopia westward through the Congo into West Africa. According to the Atlas Geographus, Upper Ethiopia extended into modern Ethiopia and the Congo region, which is the Abyssinia area, right? It extended into that area. While Lower Ethiopia included Negro land, covering much of West Africa. Therefore, when the Book of Knowledge of All Kingdoms states that these rivers irrigated all Nubia and Ethiopia, it should be understood to mean a territory encompassing Nubia, Benin, Mali, Niger, and lands near the Chad Basin. This places the 4 Edenic rivers squarely within sub-Saharan Africa and not in the lands of modern Iraq or the traditional Mesopotamian basin. The ancient geographic perspective, coupled with historical cartography, situates Eden and early human civilization in the African interior, not in the so-called Fertile Crescent. So, here's the map. This is from my book. It's by Richard William Seal. You can see right here, this is Negro land in green, which is lower Ethiopia. This is upper Ethiopia right here in the Congo area, all the way up to Abyssinia, right? Now you got to understand it's inclusive of this area right here called Guinea, right? This was called Guinea, which was part of the territory of Prester John as well, right? Which would go all the way down to South Africa, right? All, like I told you, all of this sub-Saharan Africa, all the way to Abyssinia or modern day Ethiopia down to South Africa is Israelite territory, all right? So this region includes Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan, and Ethiopia, areas that match the biblical Eden and align with early descriptions of Havilah, Cush, and the land of gold and bdellium. The significance of these rivers mentioned in Genesis 2 is tied to their abundant resources and their central role in nourishing early civilization. Most importantly, these lands coincide with the territories ruled by Prester John, according to historical sources. The 1580 Harvard map and various medieval texts assign his dominion across upper and lower Ethiopia, including Nubia, which extends into Egypt, the Congo and modern-day Ethiopia, Negro land, lower Ethiopia, including the Niger Basin and Benin. Now, one of the regions that the Chad Basin is considered to be the area of Pishon is because that whole area had to deal with gold, right? Which the Bible says that Havilah, right, has a lot of gold, right? And also that whole area is tied to the same area where we talk about the splitting of from the single source. So these four rivers split from a single source, all right? So all of these rivers are on the continent of Africa, not over there in Asia. They lied to you, okay? If Melech Yohan or Prester John was ruling these lands, then it is clear that he governed the true biblical Mesopotamia, not the traditionally accepted location in Iraq. So as I've been saying from the jump, the Niger River is the true Euphrates, all the way to the Nile River, which is the Wadi of Egypt, which is the land given to Abraham and his descendants, which is between two rivers, which is what Mesopotamia means. So Prester John, his dominion would have encompassed the biblical Edenic zone, the land given to Adam mentioned in Genesis and re-outlined in Jubilees and other apocryphal texts. So if you want more details on what Jubilees says, you need to buy my book. I got more information in there that proves my case, right? Those who read my book know that all of this lines up, all right? This alignment offers definitive, historical, and geographical proof that biblical Mesopotamia, as well as the Edenic four rivers, were in Africa, and that the kingdom of Prester John was at its center. Conclusion. A Hebrew king over the promised land in Africa. Prester John was not a myth, right? There's a lot of historical documents that proved he existed, and his name wasn't Prester John. Okay, Prester, presbytery, it means priest, right? He was a king priest. His name was Yohanan. Some of y'all say Yehochanan. All right, Prester John was not a myth. He was likely Melech. Melech means king. Yohanan, a black Israelite king, descended from Solomon and David, ruling over the true Holy Land from the Niger River to the Ethiopian highlands. His empire, described in European and Hebrew terms, was wrongly labeled as a Christian fable. So they tried to classify him as a Christian king, right? To not let us know that he was a black Israelite. Okay, so the four rivers of Eden, the real Mesopotamia, and the land promised to Abraham all align with sub-Saharan Africa. The time has come to restore this truth and recognize the true geography of the Bible and the black Israelite kings who once ruled it. Now, based upon what we know and what we have learned from our books, right, that we have written, I have written, Minister Teyu has written, and all of the research that we have already done, everything lines up with our history. Everything lines up with why our people why our people ended up in sub-Saharan Africa, why our people still to this day is in sub-Saharan Africa, have a connection to sub-Saharan Africa, because they're in what you would refer to as the land of Israel. That's what they would refer to it as, the land of Israel. But it is the inheritance given to us and our ancestors from Abraham all the way down to us. Right? So I didn't just prove 100%, at least if you give any credence to these older European texts, that the 4 rivers is from sub-Saharan Africa, West Africa, all the way to East Africa, all the way to the Nile. Just as I said, this is the Israelite territory. This is the places that King David ruled over. This is where King Solomon ruled over. From their, if you want to call it a castle, from their castle, their place over there in East Africa in the highlands of Ethiopia. All I have to say is, all of this revelation is coming forth. You know why? Because we leaving. That's my opinion, right? All of this is coming forth because we leaving. Why? Because did not the scriptures tell you when you leave, have Zion on your mind? That's Jeremiah 50. When you leave, have Zion in your mind. Keep Zion in your mind. Well, if you don't know where Zion is, you can't have it in your mind. Personally, like I told you, I was already 120% convinced where Jerusalem is. Now I'm 190% convinced where Jerusalem is and the true location of Jerusalem. I know what they call Israel, because Israel is a people. I cover that in my book as well. So all of this is making sense. So therefore, Mesopotamia, which means between 2 rivers, cannot be the Nile, can't be the Blue Nile, can't be the White Nile, because they go north. It has to be that area over there in West Africa, which is where the Niger River is, all the way over to the Nile, which is inclusive of territories like Mali, which had Timbuktu, which is where a lot of our scholars were. Today it's a Muslim majority country with, a lot of influence from Islam. But back in the day, if you go read my book, you'll find out it was the Israelite area. Some of y'all call Ibrahim Trail a Hamite. I told y'all that's the land of Lamnan, which was peopled by Jews. Once again, in the territory given to our forefathers between the Niger River, which is the Euphrates, and the Nile River. Once again, Chad, same area, bunch of Israelites. Once again, Nigeria, bunch of Israelites, all in the same area, which is Mesopotamia. So all of this stuff that you see happening today over in West Africa is biblical. It's what you would refer to as the land of Israel. It is Mesopotamia. So fam, that's all I got. There's a lot of stuff that, I got to get done because, I don't think I have much time. So the stuff that I have, I got to get out as soon as I can. So don't be surprised I'll be coming on more than usual because, everything that the Most High has shared, I got to put out. And I don't think we have much time. So I got to do what I got to do. So fam, if you want to support us, you can. You become a patron. You can also give Cash App, $TEOTW7101, $TEOTW7101. You can also go to tailministries.com, click on the donations tab and see other options for giving. Well, fam, if y'all want to support us, you can buy Minister Teu's book, They Always Knew We Were Israelites, or you can buy my book, True Jerusalem. If you want more information on this, right? If you want to learn more about your home, you want to learn more about the promised land. If you want to remove the whitewashing in your brain and get rid of all of the camp foolishness too that's being taught. So fam, that's all I got. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love you with the love of Messiah. Well, family, the wait is over. The moment has arrived where truth emerges triumphant from the shadows of history. Introducing the True Jerusalem, the Lost Kingdoms of the Israelites, the groundbreaking work by me, Jacoby Vale, a journey into the past that reshapes the future. I cut through centuries of misconceptions with piercing clarity. This book delivers a compelling case packed with evidence that commands attention and gonna get some respect. Come with me for a second, family, and discover how these thrilling civilizations flourished, protected by towering highlands and sustained by advanced engineering. Some have asked, where is Jerusalem? Is it the land in the Middle East? I say no. It is in the highlands of Ethiopia. With hours of groundbreaking research, this book brings in a new revelation, and it will transform your understanding of African history and its connections to the ancient world. It's going to remove from your mind the conditioning by the Romans of what has really happened to our past. Come with me, family, to the Ethiopian highlands and find out why this is our land, why things have been hidden and obfuscated for centuries. We are royalty, children of the Most High. What kind of land do you expect us to have? Dried up dirt in the Middle East, or land flowing with rivers? A land full of beautiful animals flowing with milk and honey. Don't miss out on this monumental unveiling. Grab your copy today and stand on the side of truth. Visit Amazon.com or www.tailministries.com to purchase your book and join Jacoby Vale's teachings on Tail Ministries. Family, your journey to hidden history has now begun. So family, get your copy of True Jerusalem, the Lost Kingdoms of the Israelites today. Journey to the heart of Africa, where history and legend converge to reveal the forgotten kingdoms of the Israelites and the true location of Jerusalem.